Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Joining me today is Rzepa, who is owner-founder of Nourish Lactation Consulting. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, let me just start by asking you, what is Nourish Lactation Consulting and what do you do?
Sure. So Nourish Lactation is a company that provides in-home breastfeeding support and education for mothers in Calgary and surrounding communities.
And how did you start with this?
Well, when I graduated from nursing school back in 2000, I began my career as a postpartum nurse at the Rockview Hospital. So I had always really enjoyed working with moms and babies and being a postpartum nurse. We spend a lot of our time helping new moms latch their babies and learn the art of breastfeeding. And I've always also been a little bit entrepreneurial at heart. So when I became a lactation consultant in 2007, my brain started thinking, maybe we could pair breastfeeding support and a business together. And based on my own experiences breastfeeding my daughters, and I struggled a lot and I had a cesarean section, so it was difficult to get to a breastfeeding clinic after having surgery and manage carrying the baby. And I really felt that there was a gap in care for providing women support in their home to get their breastfeeding journey established. So in 2008, I founded Nourish and have been pretty darn busy with it ever since.
So tell me just a little bit about the breastfeeding itself and the benefits for mother and for child.
Sure. I mean, there are so many. I could probably have a whole show talking about all the benefits, but we know for babies that human milk is perfectly designed nutrition by the mother, and her milk is designed specifically for her infant. And breast milk contains many antibodies and immune factors and proteins that are really important for the health, growth, and development of the infant. And that's something that cannot be replicated in formula. And breastfed babies typically have lower rates of many diseases and infections. Typically, the GI type of infections are much lower, less diarrhea, less GI infections. Breastfed babies also have lower rates of ear infections, asthma, allergies, lower rates of obesity or diabetes. And it's really, really great for bonding between the mom and baby during that breastfeeding connection. And it's better for a baby's dental development when they latch more naturally to the breast versus introducing an artificial nipple into their mouth. And for the mother, there are also tons of benefits. We know that breastfeeding does help to lower rates of breast and ovarian cancer. And with each baby that a woman breastfeeds, those rates do continue to drop. And it's also really great for bonding due to this amazing hormone that I love so much called oxytocin. So when a baby is suckling, that oxytocin hormone is released from the mother's pituitary, and it causes a really nice relaxation sensation for mom and baby. And it also helps her uterus contract, which is one of the other benefits. Usually it takes about a week or so for that uterus to return to pre-pregnancy size. And again, that oxytocin hormone is really protective against postpartum depression because it's considered the love hormone or the bonding hormone. It can really help protect a mom from developing those postpartum blues.
How is the concept of breastfeeding, in society today? How has that evolved? Do you see it more acceptable, I guess, these days than in the past, or maybe your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think it is definitely more accepted to see a woman breastfeeding in public. I think we've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go. I think Calgary is pretty progressive in the sense that, there's lots of young families. Women are aware of the value and the importance of breastfeeding. And when we see a mom breastfeeding in public, I don't think there's as much stigma attached to that as perhaps there was in the past. But I still do hear stories stories from my clients who tell me, they were out at a restaurant or out at a mall and they sat down to feed their baby and they were kind of getting, weird glances and people making faces at them. So I think we've come a long way, but there's still a ways for us to go.
And why do you think that was out there and still out there, that kind of
I think
non-acceptance?
Yeah. Sure. I think still in general, the breasts can be seen as a very sexualized part of a woman's body and aren't naturally thought of as nurturing, as, being able to nourish the baby. And breastfeeding is really the most natural thing in the world that a woman can do for her infant. And there really is no reason why she should feel ashamed or feel that she needs to go hide in a bathroom or hide in a corner in order to provide food and nourishment for her infant.
Okay. Now, you mentioned being an entrepreneur. Let me ask you just your thoughts on entrepreneurship. And first of all, what do you like about being an entrepreneur?
Well, I like the fact that I can use my creativity and merge that with my passion, which is helping women and supporting women. And I guess even as a young girl, I was always thinking of ways to make a little bit of extra money on the side. I used to do a lot of babysitting. I really loved working with children and infants. And I just think that there are a lot of opportunities for women and women in healthcare to merge sort of the business world and the healthcare world together in order to better support our community.
Mm-hmm. What was the biggest challenge for you setting up a business and being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it was just kind of getting my name out there, just, the advertising and the marketing. It was also a little bit tricky and still can be because, the service that I provide is private. So the client does need to pay out of pocket. There are lactation consultants and lactation clinics available through the public healthcare system that don't cost anything, but there is often a wait. It can be too long sometimes for a new mom to have to wait when she's already challenged to feed her baby or experiencing really sore, damaged, nipples, to tell a new mom, you got to wait for a week or 2 weeks to get support. So there is sort of that there. It's available in the public system, but if you hire me within the private system, I can usually get out to see a mom within 1 to 3 days of receiving a call. But working in a public healthcare system where private is still a little bit on the back burner, I'd say that's been a little bit of a challenge. But it's also really nice that because I'm a registered nurse, in addition to being an international board certified lactation consultant, a lot of insurance companies will cover out of hospital nursing services. So a lot of my clients are able to expense my visit through their insurance plan because I am also a registered nurse, which is a nice little bonus for them.
So when you set up the business and kind of developed it and nurtured the business, were there any role models that you looked at in terms of being a business person, or was any books you read, or anybody the mentors or people gave you advice that rang with you?
To be honest, not really. I think I was a little bit of a one-woman show. I think the first registered nurse lactation consultant in Calgary to open this type of business. So I didn't really have anybody that I could ask advice from or lean on. I kind of had to figure it out on my own as I went along. But I have a very supportive family. I have, family members that are also in business and in healthcare. So I was able to get some good advice for them, in terms of developing advertising campaigns and having a strong SEO. And honestly, the business really built itself based on referrals, which I believe is the best way to generate more business, is word of mouth.
Yeah. If you had somebody come to you that was interested in being an entrepreneur, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would give them the advice to set a goal, kind of have a vision of what you want your business to look like, and think about where you are today and what steps you need to take in order to get to that goal. Because I truly believe if you put it out there, if you have a vision, if you have, a realistic goal and a good plan to execute it, there's nothing that can stop you if you're determined.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So tell me just a little bit about yourself. Why did you get into this whole area of healthcare initially?
Sure. Like I said, I've always loved babies. I've always loved helping people. When I was, in high school, and I was kind of deciding, do I want to maybe go the medical school route or nursing school route? I liked the fact that with nursing school, I could just go right into it. And then within 4 years, have a degree and have a career. And I've never kind of looked back since. I've always worked in the maternal child world. And throughout my career, I've had three of my own children. I have a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 12-year-old, all girls. And they all gave me challenges with breastfeeding. And of course, when you're the nurse or when you're the teacher, it's always so much easier to help and support somebody else. But when you're going through it yourself, you're like, what's going on here? I don't know what to do. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah. And was there any when you look back at, did you grow up being breastfed, and was that just a natural progression?
Yes, I know my mom told me that she struggled a lot. I mean, I was born in the late 70s, and back then there really was not a whole lot of support in the community for breastfeeding women. I know my mom reached out to Nourish Lactation, which is a breastfeeding support group, and they're still around and they are fantastic. And I honestly think if my mom hadn't reached out to them, she probably would have quit breastfeeding me. And I think I was breastfed, I think she said, for about a year, which I think back in those days was pretty good. So I think a lot of women were still choosing formula as the primary way of feeding their babies, because there was not that support that's available now for women.
Yeah. Okay, super. What else do you do, Leanne? What interests do you have besides your work?
Well, so I'm a very busy gal. So I also continue to work within the hospital system. So I do still support breastfeeding women within one of the local hospitals here in Calgary. And then Nourish is my business baby on the side, which honestly does take up almost another full-time job. And I'm also really invested in the community. So I also am the founder of the Mama Market. So I run a market that is kind of mother focused twice a year out of the Calgary Jewish Center. We run a market in the fall, and then we run another one. We run one in spring, and then we run one in December. So I've, been able to network with a lot of other professions, healthcare related professions. So I like to kind of bring everybody together and showcase their business in a market setting. And then I'm also the founder of the Community Magazine, which is a magazine where we highlight and feature women within our community, and we showcase their professions, their passions, their careers, and just do a little bit more networking and get to know each other. All the amazing things that some of the women do within our community. Plus, I have 3 kids, and I have a very strong network of friends and a very great family. So between Nourish and the hospital and community and the Mama Market, I'm a pretty busy gal most weeks.
You get time to sit back and just relax?
Occasionally, I like to go to hot yoga. That's kind of my time, my downtime, my relaxation time, and that kind of keeps me grounded and centered.
Yeah, it's when you talk about a lot of these activities, and again, the being an entrepreneur too, it's in many ways it's a 24/7 job. You're always on call doing stuff for your business, or just thinking about your business, right? And where do you get ideas from? Is there any particular, like, for example, I tend to get my ideas when I go for my daily walk and go out for a walk for about an hour, and which I'm going to be going out soon, and just things pop into my head, without consciously thinking about. I should be thinking about work, right? What about yourself?
That, going back to that hot yoga, I got to say, when I'm just lying down still, sort of alone with my thoughts, even though we're supposed to have no thoughts when we're relaxing on the floor, that's often when I get inspired. That's often when something will pop into my head and be like, maybe we should try this, or how about we run with this? And so that's often when I get those really inspiring ideas, is when I am alone with my own thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess breastfeeding is like that as well, right? In the sense that it's a very calming, focused period of time where you're not doing anything but one thing, right? And
that is true. It's that really special time that a mom can just hold her baby skin to skin, gaze into her baby's eyes. And as the baby gazes back at her, it's a really, really special bonding relationship. And then going back to that lovely hormone of oxytocin, that bonding, that love hormone, that often does make moms really relaxed and really almost sometimes drowsy, which is so nice for a new mom who's often exhausted. Almost 24/7, just to have that time to sit and relax and to be with her baby.
Yeah, super. So, Leanne, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out?
Sure. So they can visit the Nourish website. They can find me at www.nourishconsulting.net. And there is a book a consult page. They can fill out an online request. I usually get back to moms within an hour or so, and then we'll set up a home visit at their convenience. I always try to work, my schedule around the baby's feeding schedule to make sure that, it works for the family when I come. And I do offer like complimentary text, phone, and email support to all my clients after the initial consult. I do value, I understand that it can be challenging sometimes when a mom has a quick question or isn't sure what's going on. So I do always try to make myself available by text, phone, or email. If a mom wants to just shoot me a quick text or has a question, I'm always happy to troubleshoot with them as needed to help their journey be as successful as possible.
All right, super. Well, thanks, Leanne, for joining us today.
You're welcome, Mario. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, super. That was Leanne Rzepa, who is owner and founder of Nourish Lactation Consulting in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us today.